From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up! Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
and this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What's up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant, proudly presented by Zaxby's Indescribably Good. It's indescribably good. I already said that. You know that. Michael Jennings took a photo, Corey, of his dinner the other day. Sensation sandwich and fried white cheddar bites, 3 exclamation marks. It was so good he really he couldn't describe it. He just showed us a photo of how delicious it was.
Well, that's the thing about Zaxby's, right? You can't describe it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's indescribable.
You know what Warchant is? It's describable. It's the ultimate Seminole sports source. Use that promo code WARCHANT30 for 30 free days of access. If you're listening to this on YouTube, how about you people hit the thumbs up button and like this? You folks on your Apple device, 5-star reviews, much appreciated, as well as
I think I'm going to crush some
polite
Zaxby's
reviews.
tonight, Aslan.
Okay, well, hey, look at that. Sales pitch worked on you. Look at
I
that.
did. I'm like, you know what? I was thinking about the cheddar bites. That made my mind go to the mushrooms. And then I thought about, obviously the chicken fingers, little coleslaw.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? Daddy, it's going to be a Zaxby's night for Daddy, I think.
Treat yourself. Treat yourself, Corey Clark.
That's right, buddy.
Also, heads up, everybody, if you are traveling on Mahan, eastbound of Capitol Circle on Tuesday early evening, do be careful of perhaps some traffic. That'll be rerouted as a homecoming parade is set to be slated for the arrival of the one Corey S. Clark back to the capital city. Can't wait to see him, man.
Man, when you were going through that, I'm like, wait, what? Am I going to have to deal with traffic tomorrow? What is this? I didn't know what you were even talking about. But, hey, man, I appreciate it. Maybe we'll get a little tennis in
Yes.
during the week. I'm sure Stephanie's going to have us golfing at some point, but we'll definitely do some tennis as well. I will probably not see you on Saturday, which will be a first
Yeah, I know.
for an actual football game, but I'll be there in spirit.
Yeah.
And are we doing? I guess we'll have the. So, are Ira and I? Like, can we still do our post game stuff on the field?
I mean, I don't know. Probably not. I mean, they said there's nobody
There'll be
allowed
nobody
on the field.
field.
Maybe
Like I'm talking about, like after the game. There's nobody on the field. What would be the harm in it?
I don't know. We'll have to ask. But I don't know. Yeah, if you guys can bring your laptop down there and get signal on Wi-Fi, I can patch you guys in, and we can just do it through the.
Well, either way, I'm going to
mechanism
have my. I'm going to be wearing my hair.
All right.
So
Do you
win or lose.
Have you secured the wig?
No, that's the next 3 to 4 days is what
Okay.
we're doing.
All right. Crunch time.
Yep.
Crunch time for Corey Clark. All right. So on Monday, we spoke to all the coordinators and the head football coach. Depth chart was also dropped, and the depth chart was dropped before the press conference, like a good 30 minutes beforehand, so we could all kind of do our research. So much obliged, new coaching staff. Let's start on the offense first off, Corey. I know everybody's going to want to go to the offensive line, and we certainly will be talking about the offensive line throughout this show and throughout the season. But, man, we need to figure out some sort of cool term for the package that involves Warren Thompson and Tamorrion Terry being on the field at the same time, because that's what it looks like with this depth chart. It has both Warren and Terry slated as starters. That's 6'3", 201 pounds coming at you, Warren Thompson running at you. And if you got Terry, you got 6'4", 210 pounds to deal with. Both those guys run like the wind as well. So,
They're not
I'm
like
stoked.
Anquan Bolden types. Not that Anquan was 6'4", but they're not the 4'6", 40 guys. I mean, they can really move for their size. It's like, it's like kind of not Kelvin. Kelvin was a different deal when he was in shape, but it's sort of like that. Like a big dude that can run, and they got 2 of them. Now, Warren Thompson has not done it in a game at all, so we'll see.
not worried about it.
I know you're not. I think it's got to
You're
be
not
something
worried
with.
about it. You
No,
were high on
not
him,
really.
like 5 months ago.
I mean, you always wonder the first time they're out there and they're counted on. They're actually depended on how they react to it, how they react to the pressure that comes with a game. It should not be as big a pressure as if there was 70,000 people, but there's still obviously pressure. I was thinking though, it's got to be something with tees, like Tea Party or something. Tea Party in the end zone, or Mr. T. Something about pitying the fool that's trying to. There's a lot of avenues we got to go down with the Tea Party, but it's definitely those 2 guys for sure. I can't think of anybody else that has T as the last name, but you don't need it. Thompson and Terry, the issue I have, though, is singling those two. Or I guess you can't single out two people, but you know what I mean. Putting them into a tandem, it leaves out our man Keyshawn.
Right.
And I think Keyshawn is going to be a huge weapon for this team. But yes, I don't know if there's another, now that all the guys at LSU have either opted out or gone pro, I don't know if there's another receiving core that can claim two guys that look and move like Terry and Thompson. Those are different dudes, man. There's just not a lot of those guys walking around on college campuses. Well, I guess they're probably not walking around on college campuses this year anyway, but you get the point.
Gene Williams, a.k.a. .com, joked about it that, run some trips out there with Terry and Thompson in front of Keyshawn, and Keyshawn can just hide behind them and, find something big.
Well,
play.
and I wonder, Tamarian at times took a ton of pride in his blocking. And, he would like blindside guys, like try to push them off the field and into the stands a few times. And you feel like Warren Thompson might have some of that in him too. And so that's another big thing that's obviously a lot overlooked when it comes to wide receiver play. You want guys that score touchdowns and get first downs. You're not all that concerned about blocking if you're a fan. But on the perimeter in this offense, that's a big deal, man, to have guys that can block down. I mean, in any offense, it's good to have guys that can block and take pride in it. And because there aren't corners that can there aren't a lot of corners that can match up physically with 6'3", 200.
I feel so much more optimistic about just thinking about those two guys out there all the time. I don't know, just the conventional wisdom always tells you that you never put those. You just don't see it all that often. Like you always have like your sizable, rangy sort of guy, and then you have your possession guy. I always thought it was going to be Pokey playing like the role of Ron Dugans, and then Terry was just going to be this freakazoid, not quite P-Dub, but just a really highly productive guy. I mean, these two guys out there with Keyshawn in the slot and Cameron McDonald running routes in between the hashes.
Yeah, don't forget him. I mean, that guy's another clone as far as the body type.
I know everyone's, you got to block. Yeah, but for how long?
For sure. Well, you do have to block. And remember, that is something, we've talked about it, but losing the UCLA tight end, that's a big loss because that was going to be an extra lineman. That they really do want to they use the tight ends a lot to block. So that is a big deal in that position. But speaking just on those two receivers, number one, it tells you that we never really knew, but it tells you that Warren Thompson got back into the good graces of his head coach and his offensive coordinator and his football team enough to be not only a part of the team, but has done well enough to now he's counted on to be a starter, which is good news for a variety of reasons. But also, I think the reason you don't see a lot of schools with 6'3", 6'4" guys like that on opposite ends is because, again, like I said, I don't think there's a lot of them out there. If Jimbo had another Kelvin, he would have put him out there on the opposite side and said, Rashad, you go be in the slot. You know what I mean? Like I think that you can't have – I don't think you go into a run an offense and just say, okay, I want my one big play, big guy threat on one side, and then the other guy needs to be kind of a shifty, smaller guy. And what about this other guy that is huge and runs really fast? No. We only need one of those guys out there at a time. I don't think that's how it works. I do think Dillingham said that on when we talked to him again, and it's not anything new, but about they or maybe it was Norvell. Maybe it was Norvell that talked about motion, getting guys one-on-one matchups, moving them around a lot. He doesn't believe in putting a guy on one side of the field and just leaving him there. So there probably will be instances where Terry and Thompson are on the same side of the field, right? Maybe lined up right next to each other. Imagine that as the two cornerbacks looking across the field at that.
Well, I was just wondering because they're going to do a lot of three wide. And they're going to run a lot of 11 personnel with one back, one tight end, three wideouts, and one guy's going to be on the boundary, one guy's going to be on the field. So you do have a lot different sort of a task ahead of you when you're on one side of the field versus the other, but they feel that both these guys who seem to have very similar skill sets can play both, in both spots. They can play on the boundary when they don't have a lot of room to maneuver, and they can play on the field side where they have a whole bunch more responsibility for a defensive back to have to worry about. And that gets me stoked. I know there's a whole bunch of other stuff
I'm excited.
on the chart, but I just think
I'm excited about Thompson. I really am. It's good because, again, it was just 3 practices. But he was more impressive than anybody I saw on offense in those 3 practices, just the way he moved for that size. I did not know that was in him. I thought he was a big possession receiver, and he can be, but he really does move well. And unless he's gotten a lot slower in the last 6 months, I assume we're going to see more of the same moving forward this season. To have him, who I think he has the tools to be a really nice player, maybe a special player. I think Keyshawn could be the heartbeat of your team. Just everything about that guy can be the heartbeat of your team. Yep. And then you also have maybe the most talented receiver in the country on the other side. That's good, man. That's good. But if they can't block it up, what does it matter, Aslan?
I just don't know how long you have to block it up when you got those two guys. I mean, it makes things a lot easier. I think James Blackman's going to feel a lot more comfortable in the pocket, even if there's duress coming at his direction, because he's got these guys to throw to.
The one thing I want to see, the one thing I want to see out of both those guys, I haven't seen it out of Warren Thompson because obviously he hasn't played really, and then Tamorrion Terry, it's never really been a part of his game, but it's something that he needs to make a part of his game. Is the jump ball, back shoulder, those types of throws. His big plays are just straight up, I'm going to run by you, run under the ball and catch it, which is always a great skill to have. Right. But the jump balls have not been a part of his game. He's not shown incredible ball skills when it comes to that in his first 2 years. I think that's the one thing that he really has to improve for the next level is one-on-one. There's a great DB covering me, snatching at me. I got a big frame. I've got to be able to pull this in and go over the top of him and make a catch. He hasn't done a ton of that, and I keep coming back to Kelvin Benjamin. He hasn't, but who does? That's not fair. But he hasn't made those Kelvin Benjamin type catches where Jameis would just throw it up and say, go get it, big boy. And that's what I want to see out of both those guys, because think about what those because Tamorrion Terry, how many catches does he have, touchdowns does he have in the red zone? Not a ton, right?
Well, we're complaining about stuff already, Corey.
No, what I'm saying, that.
I know what you're saying.
It seems like that could be a weapon, a big weapon.
Yeah.
To have two huge guys like that on opposite sides that they have to cover one-on-one, if they can get better at that. Kelvin, it would just be, here's the ball, man, go get it. And we don't have to do the Jeff Bowden, Greg Carr offense, but if you have a matchup with a 5'9" corner and you got a guy that's 6'3" with long arms that can jump, to the goalpost, that should be an easy 6 a lot of the time. So I'm interested to see how much better they've gotten in that area. But other than that, it's you kind of salivate thinking about two athletes built like that on the perimeter.
Absolutely. All right. Now, can you block it up, obviously?
Yep.
The offensive line, I think that was probably the first thing I went to as soon as the depth chart came down, just scrolling down and looking at it, and new faces in new places. I think Maurice Smith starting at center, probably one of the more surprising things that popped up on this depth chart. We mentioned his name in passing kind of as a swing guy, maybe backing up maybe your third string kind of center, but then being able to play at one of those guard spots. And we thought it was kind of, Baselli and Bavion's job, maybe Baselli. I mean, I think maybe I had Baselli, you maybe had Bavion or what have you. But no, Maurice Smith is your starter for week 1 versus Georgia Tech. 6'3", 286 pounds. He's significantly smaller than pretty much everybody else on that offensive line. But that just, I don't know, I just feel like I trust this staff to pick the right guy, and then you have a new name to throw there at the center spot. You put Bavion at right guard, Dante's at left guard, Darius Washington at one tackle spot, Devontae Love-Taylor. I mean, you look significantly different than you did just one season ago. I mean, let me pull it up here. If I'm not mistaken here, the way it started from left to right last year against Boise, game 1, was Jawan left tackle, Brady Scott left guard, Bavion your center, Dante right guard, Ryan Roberts your right tackle. I mean, that's I mean, you talk about revamping and flipping. I mean, they pretty much did that right there. And if Maurice Smith can give you something that you haven't at the center spot, we feel right tackle's been upgraded. We feel that left tackle's been upgraded. Dante Lucas, 1 more year stronger, better. I don't know how much stronger because he had a leg injury, but it was a broken bone, which isn't as big of a deal these days. And then Bavion, who knows, maybe not having to worry about snapping the ball, which maybe sounds crazy to some, just having to only worry about what's in front of your face, playing at the guard spot. That's maybe something he can grow into and be a little bit more comfortable with. That's 5 different guys, and who knows, we might sit here for a year from now and talk about going into 2021 and look at who we had starting last year. But for some odd reason, I just feel good about it. Just feel good about it.
Okay, man, you're Mr. Positivity today. That's good to know. Yeah, I mean, it should be better than it was last year. I do think with those 2 guards, I don't know how great Big Baby is at pass protection. I don't know how great he wasn't great at snapping the ball. It's a completely different position. I think maybe he's even a little, his body type is more cut out to be a guard. And I just think you're going to have 3 guys in the interior that you believe in that can at least get you a push up the middle in run plays. But can they pass pro? Can they communicate? Can they pass off blitzers? These are all the things you just don't know. And you wonder how much these 5 have worked with each other, because it has been a bunch of mixing and matching. And the one good news, the one good thought, well, I guess it's good news when you think about Maurice Smith winning that job is, man, he had to go earn it. Like, there were 2 guys he had to beat that had started multiple games at that position that we assumed it was a 2-person job, and he went and beat both of them for it. So that, to me, that's a good sign. Now, you could go the other way and say, all right, well, that might be a good sign, but then the guy that got beat out at center just moves to right guard. Like, that might not be the best sign that you have a great stable of linemen that you just push him over one. So I get it. It's not. It's going to be. I think it's going to be a work in progress. There's going to be some transition. I think you're going to have multiple starters at multiple positions. I think Dante is set. I think the tackles are probably set, but center and guard might move a good bit, and maybe even the tackles aren't set. We don't know. We don't know how healthy Darius Washington is. It's all up in the air. But he did say again that they're going to try to have 8 guys. He said, I don't know what Baselli's going to do. He didn't really mention Baselli at all, but he mentioned Brady Scott, saying that Brady Scott's basically a backup at 4 positions. Center would be the only one I guess he wouldn't be a backup at. And then you got the 2 freshmen that are both on the depth chart too. And Chaz Neal, I think, is the other one that's on the depth chart.
Correct. Yeah.
Right?
Thomas Schrader backing up one of the guard spots, and then.
So I know somebody's wanted us to ask about Ira Henry a lot. Well, all right. There's your depth chart, man. He ain't on it.
There you go. Yeah, you got a lot of Miami. You got a little 305 flavor in there. Maurice Smith and Dante Lucas in the middle there, and then we'll see about Bavion. I just if he's still if he got moved from center after pretty much struggling to finally get that job, not even maybe struggling, but just basically having to wait his turn behind Alec Eberle, which for a while we thought, well, maybe Alec Eberle's just a really maybe just a solid college football player, and Bavion just has to wait his turn. And I don't really know if that was the conclusion that was ultimately made. But for Bavion, they kind of have to wait his turn, play center, maybe kind of be in the midst of a battle for that with Andrew Baselli at some point in the brief spring they had. But then to be kind of told, hey, let's try you at guard, and then go out there and perform to the ability that you start in front of a guy like Brady Scott, who's got probably, I don't know, at least 2 dozen starts, I would think, at playing guard. I mean, that has to reflect pretty well on him and his ability. So, and I don't know, again, you don't want to change things just for the sake of changing it, but this offensive line has just been so downtrodden and just such a bummer to think about. That just when I think about putting a new guy here, bringing in a new face here, moving Dante one spot, flipping him on the side of the ball, 2 new tackles. Again, I just feel maybe that's what we're not even talking about enough here as we kind of focus on Maurice Smith and Bavion Johnson. Just ultimately, man, you had Jawan Williams starting at left tackle. You had Ryan Roberts starting at right tackle. Ryan Roberts was serviceable, but if you kind of do a little bit of an apples-to-apples comparison in terms of what Ryan Roberts did at his previous stop and what Devontae Love-Taylor did at his previous stop, Love-Taylor definitely wins out. So with what we think is better coaching, maybe a more sound scheme, maybe better teaching going on, you're going to be better at right tackle. And then, good grief, you're going to be better at left tackle because you got someone who's at least going to fight.
Yeah, and you also have guys that aren't used to getting pushed around. Now, they might be used to being pushed around by the third quarter of Saturday's game. But a lot of these guys haven't, Darius Washington, Maurice Smith, they played a couple games each. And, this is going to sound like a shot at Brady Scott, and it's not, because he's a serviceable player. He's played for them a lot. He's not a very good college football offensive lineman, or he hasn't proven to be. And he's also used to getting obliterated by good defenses. He's used to being a part of an offensive line that isn't any good at all, that's actually mocked nationally. Well, these 5 aren't. Jawan Williams was used to that. Abdul Bello was used to that. Those guys got used to being bad. And that can lower the standard to a point where you don't even look, you can't even recognize yourself. And at least these guys, Maurice Smith isn't used to getting dominated at the center position. Dante Lucas isn't used to getting dominated by anyone. And then the other guys aren't either. Maybe just a fresh slate, a clean slate. I mean, big babies, I guess, warrant it some. but he's really the only one out of the 5 that have worn it as a Florida State offensive lineman. So belief is a big thing too, man. And the whole here we go again, or just not letting the standards settle down into mediocrity. Like, it's probably going to be a mediocre offensive line. But you don't want the guys up front to think that going into the season. Like, God, let's just try to be mediocre this year, guys. That'd be a huge step up. You want them to be good, and you don't want them to be comfortable with being bad. And again, I'm not saying Brady Scott was comfortable being bad, but it sure seemed like the offensive line the last 2 years as a whole was just completely okay with mediocrity. Or were just terrible football players. Whatever the case may be, they never really got any better. And now you have a clean slate with a clean coaching staff, a new coaching staff. They're probably clean too. Guys, everybody needs to be cleaning yourselves as much as possible. Yeah. Shower, hand sanitizer, wash as much as possible, please. And not just during COVID, just for the rest of our lives. Just to do it, to be nice to people. But so you got a new coaching staff, clean slate. None of those guys on that starting 5, like I said, they're not used to being bad football players. And maybe they won't be. We'll see. But I do, maybe that's just me thinking out loud and being dumb. But I do think there's something to when you struggle, when you're not good for 2 years, it is in you. It becomes in you. And you're like, man, you don't believe in yourself. You don't believe in what's going on, and you get used to it. And you get used to being 18 and 20. Over 3 years. It just becomes a part of what you are. It doesn't matter to you as much anymore. I don't know. So good. Good that it's new guys. I'm fired up that it's new guys. And Brady Scott is a guy that can be plugged in if needed. But let's try it with 5 new guys and see what it looks like.
I don't know. I don't want to get him in trouble here. Ira would, when we were talking about the preseason top 40, I think most of us, I think Gene might have had Brady a little bit higher than you and I. But I think Ira was like the most bearish on Brady Scott, and his sort of explanation was like, I'm sure he's out there trying for sure, but like there's no difference in when Brady Scott's out there and when he's not out there. Like there's never a drop off when he went out or if he slid over to another spot. And I'm not trying to pile on the kid, but it goes to your sort of point, and maybe back to mine originally, just like let's just get some new guys out there. I mean, which again is not the best sort of defense for doing something different. It's just to change it just for change's sake. But when you've been doing the same stuff and it hasn't been working, and that's going back to the Wells and Sandy. Real quick on Maurice Smith. I mean, he was the highest graded offensive lineman pass blocking who played at least like 100 snaps. Dante Lucas was right behind him. Dante Lucas was 66.9 on the pass blocking. Maurice Smith was 68.5. Jay Williams, the JUCO player, literally had 8 total snaps, so I'm not going to really count him. But Maurice Smith, his pass blocking was 78.8 against Boston College, 75.5 against Florida, and he played 30 snaps against the Gators, and then 63.4 against Arizona State when it came to pass blocking.
Well, and those don't sound great, folks, but compared to what the other linemen were doing all season, he's Einstein. Like, those are Einstein grades compared to, like, the rest of mortal man. Like, those Brady Scotts and Abdul Bellows and Jawan Williams were in the 30s and 40s. So anything in the 60s and 70s is otherworldly. So, yeah, man, he might be a real player. To be starting as a center as a redshirt freshman is good. And the good news is, too, hopefully they're decent. Or not decent. Again, I don't want to – I'm setting everybody up for failure. Hopefully they're okay. They make a step. They're also all young, except for Bayvion's not. But those 3, the center, the guard, and the tackle – are all young guys that can grow up and maybe, hopefully, start 22, 23, 24 games together. That would be nice, right? If they're talented and if they're up to the job. And you have those 2 other freshmen waiting in the wings. Schrader and Robert Scott. Okay, I'm okay. I'm starting to get it.
There you go. That's all that matters. Keep trying. Meanwhile, on the defensive side of things, man, you want to talk about depth. I know the secondary is kind of what comes to mind when we talk about depth on the defense, but when you look at the front 4, Kando, Marvin Wilson, Robert Cooper, Janaris Robinson, and you got Corey Durden and Fabian Lovett backing up Marvin Wilson and Robert Cooper. Have fun with that. You know, like have fun with that North Carolina's offensive line. Not saying I'm sure Clemson, Notre Dame, their interior is going to be able to hold up. Like, good luck, Pitt. these 50-50 games you talk about, I probably give too much respect to Louisville. Like, good luck, Louisville. Good luck with Marvin Wilson, Robert Cooper coming at you. Cooper running off the field, Lovett coming in, Marvin running off, Durden coming on, Cooper back. I mean, just that's absurdly great.
Well, and when Fuller, did you ask Fuller about it on Monday? About the defensive tackle? I don't remember who did, but when he was asked about it, and he's like, and don't forget, and I just forgot who he said, the 5 and 6, Melvin Ray,
True Thompson.
There you go, True Thompson. So he's like, we feel like we got 6 guys, and he goes, now look, obviously number 5 isn't as good as number 1, but number 5 can be good in certain situations, and the key in what he said, which is the honest, obviously it's obvious, but it's true, is you have to handle their reps well enough that the starters, number 1 and number 2, aren't worthless at the end of the game because they're so tired. So what you want to say is good luck to like North Carolina and Georgia Tech in the fourth quarter if Marvin Wilson's only on his 29th rep of the game.
Right.
And that offensive lineman is on his 65th. Like, good luck, man. Because you got no chance on the first snap of the game, but when you're dead tired and he's fresh, you've really got no chance. And if the drop-off isn't that big between the starters and the second group, which it doesn't appear to be, there's going to be a drop-off because Marvin's one of the best in the country. But those 2 backups could start on a lot of teams. If they give you those middle reps in the middle of the game, and then you can come back with a Marvin Wilson and like a Durden on the last drive of a game when you have a 6-point lead and those linemen are dead tired, you should be pushing those guards should be getting pushed right into the quarterback's feet every pass. And that's exciting, man. That's real depth if they stay healthy, and it's all about health for injuries and illness. But if they can stay healthy and keep that depth, that's going to be a problem for almost any offensive line they see. Doesn't mean they're going to be overwhelmed. Doesn't mean they're going to be unblockable, and you're going to be looking like, hey, why did that team score 22 points? I thought y'all said they were going to be unblockable. We're not saying that. It's just going to be really hard for those interior linemen to deal with that for 4 quarters. Because you're talking about 4 guys that have NFL potential, and they're coming at you in waves. Every 8 or 9 plays, you have to deal with a fresh one.
Linebacker, Emmett Rice, who's now number 1. He's changed his uniform number to number 1. Weak side linebacker, Leonard Warner III, your middle linebacker, and your stud, Amari Gaynor or Kalen DeLoach. So good for Kalen DeLoach to be able to kind of work his way into the rotation there. And then defensive back, obviously, is just ridiculous. Just Travis J all over the place. Jarian Jones, your transfer, looks like he's kind of eked ahead of Akeem Dent. Again, this is all just 1 week. Miko Dotson is an or with Akeem Dent behind Jarian Jones, your national leader in interceptions. Asante's got your other cornerback spot sort of locked down. Renardo Green is involved because obviously Hamza will not be available week 1. He continuing to come back from his knee injury that he sustained in the regular season finale against Florida. I would assume if they were opening – I mean, they would never admit this. I would think if Florida State was opening with North Carolina or opening with Miami, I would gander a guess that Hamza would play, but they can probably get away with. And
I feel like you meant you would harbor a guess. I think hazard a guess. So we both got it wrong. Gander is to look at something.
I know, but you can gander. Can you gander a guess?
I don't think so.
Around?
Yeah, I think you're just taking a gander.
Okay. Well, regardless,
but you can't harbor a guess either.
I would hazard a guess that if they're playing Miami, Hamza would probably be able to suit up and play, and that's people.
I don't know, man. Because that implies that Mike Norvell. I mean, it's a really important game. But this is like one of the winnable games that you better win.
It's your cost-benefit analysis. It's give this kid 3 more weeks versus throw him out there now. So I understand what you're saying. You cannot count your chickens before they're hatched at any point with this team at this juncture. But that just seems to me he's really close. So I mean that sort of opens the door for him returning against Miami. And you look at the way the schedule lays out, you're like, all right, that kind of makes sense. Give him a few extra weeks. But you got Renardo Green, Travis J, and Jalen Lars-Woodby all sort of in the mix at your safety spots. And those 2 great cornerbacks, Asante Samuel and Jarian Jones, who they got from Mississippi State. Man, if we did the over/under, I'd probably hammer the over at this point if 7.5 was the line. I think I'm back on the 8 train.
For what? For wins?
Yeah.
Okay. That tells you a lot where the national leader in interceptions might be third string at Florida State. And that's look, he's behind Jarian Jones and Akeem Dent. But again, I think, and Asante's got it locked on the other side, but I think you're going to see Miko Dotson play. You're going to see Akeem Dent play, and you're going to see him play a good bit. I don't think this is one of the things where it's like, Jarian and Asante are on the field for 80 snaps. It's not going to be like that. They're going to mix and match. They're going to mix and match, and they're going to rotate. And obviously missing Hampsa is a big deal. You need to get him fully healthy. But Travis Jay is like I wrote about on Monday. He's like everywhere on the depth chart. His name is in bold everywhere. He's an or at 2 different positions on defense, and he's also an or on the 2 returns positions. And that just says a lot about him and number one, how talented he is, but also that they're willing to make him a co-starter at 2 different safety positions tells you that he's going to be on the field quite a bit in some capacity. They realize that they have a special kind of talent in that kid. Fuller did kind of put the brakes on a little bit. It's like he's not perfect by any means. He's still got a lot of football he's got to learn. But they seem to be really excited about the potential that he has. But, you do – Hampsa's a big miss. That's a big loss for week 1 because now you have 2 guys playing safety. But Jaden Large-Whitby might be playing, probably will be playing a good bit. And you forget – I always forget about him. And Raymond Woody. Like Raymond Woody, is he on the depth chart?
Yeah, Buck. He's Jaden Large-Whitby or Travis Jay, and then Raymond Woody is the backup at Buck. And they got
so we
Cyrus
feel like
Fagan. He's got Cyrus Fagan, a 4th year, senior, also at the free safety spot, backing up Green and Jay. So he just, those guys. So
there's a lot. There's some experience there. A good bit of experience when it comes to Cyrus Fagan, and then you Raymond Woody, I think, is a good player, man. And so Renardo Green to beat out Raymond Woody. And to essentially maybe even beat out somebody like Cyrus Fagan because they mix and match and figure out who the best 2 guys are to play. He must have had a really good camp. And that's good. That's what you want. You want guys to go earn this stuff. And I don't know that he's going to be a starter even on Saturday. But Adam Fuller did say that Renardo Green is going to play a lot of football on Saturday. He's going to be on the field a lot on Saturday. And kind of bristled at your question, which you didn't even mean it negatively. He's like, there's nothing level about Renardo Green or whatever he said. And yeah, man, you can tell that they think that guy's a real player and that he's grown a lot. I don't know how much he's going to play moving forward just because it's so stacked back there. But it's a good problem to have. And when you throw Nazle, but my point was you're probably going to have some inexperience in the secondary at that position. Even if it's Jaden Large-Whitby, well, he hasn't played a ton of safety in his career. Obviously, Renardo Green and Travis Jay haven't played any safety in their career at all in games. So how are they going to do their first time on the big stage in a position they haven't played a real football game in before? That to me is something you worry about. But, you also have a ton of talent. So hopefully there won't be too many mix-ups in the secondary. But that's going to be what you wonder, the communication, the free safety, not getting beat deep, being able to cornerback handing them off and you being there where you're supposed to be, how that communication will go in the first game with 2 guys that haven't done it on the big stage before. Although this is kind of what we call this like a partially lit stage, right? It's not there's only 12, 18,000 people in a stadium. It's not the biggest stage.
Well, the thing is, it's just Georgia Tech, man. And again, I know where Florida State is in the college football universe right now. I'm not trying to sound overly arrogant, but the last thing I'm worried about is like Georgia Tech's passing attack finding soft spots in Florida State's secondary because they have young guys playing the safety spots. And I know you're bringing up a legitimate thing. I'm not trying to argue about it. I'm just saying this is why I'm optimistic about things because you got to win this first game. And you're totally poised to do so with everybody that you have slated to line up in these spots. It's extremely enticing to think about what this team is capable of now that you see it there. I mean, we knew all these guys existed, and we knew they were probably going to play in these certain spots. But I don't know, for some reason, when I look at it on paper, and they don't play the games on paper, I realize that. I just feel they're considerably better pretty much everywhere. And there's nothing – Cam, running back's probably the only thing they took a step back at. And they did take a step back. I like Ja'Shawn Corbin, but Cam's really, really good. Although he fumbled the ball during Hard Knocks, too. I was watching an episode. Come on, Cam.
Come on, Cam. Come on, buddy. Hold on to the ball.
Meanwhile, specialists, a lot of Orrs. Gene Williams also joked that maybe John Papuchis should be called Coach Orr because everything is Orr. No kicker has been determined place kicking wise. Those duties are still up for grabs. Punter is still up for grabs. Snapper is up for grabs. Holder up for grabs. All that sort of stuff. I think the only sort of interesting thing was I think John Papuchis said that they're not going to do a kind of long game, short game guy where maybe there's one kicker they'll go to if it's 35 and inside and maybe some guy that would handle it if it's going to be 45 and longer. It just sounds like they're just going to try to find the best kicker and let him roll.
Yeah, and I think just judging from what we saw in spring practice, like last year when I watched Fitzgerald kick, like in warm-ups or whatever, I'm like, is that what's he doing here? But watching him in the spring, he has a strong leg. I don't know what happened in the offseason, but he got himself a nice strong leg, and he was booming him. He doesn't have Grothouse's leg, but it's plenty long enough to kick 50-yarders. And Papuchis' point was like, we don't want them not knowing if they're going to be kicking it based on field position. We don't want them like looking at the field position and be like, oh, am I going in? Is he going in? What if we get 2 extra yards? I'm 45 and in, and right now they're at the 30.
Right.
So, he just wants one kicker, which makes sense. You kind of do want one kicker. But, yeah, it's not like it's gamesmanship. It's not like Georgia Tech their coaching staff is like, have they named a long snapper yet? What are they doing? Who's going to kick for them? Why won't they tell us? Like, it's not gamesmanship. I do think that he wants those guys that aren't going to be starters to still see their names in bold on a depth chart. And maybe even use this last week as the final leg of a competition. If it really is close in, say, the kicking battle. To maybe see how they handle Tuesday and Wednesday when the pressure is really on to see if they can perform on Saturday. I don't know. I think Travis Jay is going to be returning some kicks.
I think, the ball's going to be touching his hand, hopefully when he's playing defense, but for certain on the special teams. Hey, let's play a game that you're not going to want to like to play.
All right. That sounds awesome.
I want to go through everybody that's named a starter, at least on offense and defense, and identify whether they're a Norvell guy, a Taggart guy, or a Jimbo guy or other. So here we go. You ready?
Okay.
Blackman, Jimbo guy.
Okay.
Corbin, we could say Jimbo. I could. But
he had a chance. He could be playing with Jimbo right now. He ain't a Jimbo guy.
Yeah. Norvell. All right, so we go. Jimbo, Norvell, Taggart, other. We're tied 1 apiece. Let's do this. Terry, Jimbo guy. Warren, Taggart guy. Keyshawn, Taggart guy. Cameron McDonald, Taggart guy. Darius Washington, Taggart guy. Dante Lucas. I'm gonna say Telly, because Telly was pretty much his godfather growing up. I know it happened.
That's still Taggart, though.
I'm giving it other.
Okay.
You didn't give me a compelling enough reason.
Okay.
Maurice Smith. I'm going to give that to Telly as well. He's his former high school. That's where he coached at. He probably heard about him first, brought him onto the radar. I guess you could maybe give Taggart credit, but I'm going to give it to Telly. Bavion, Jimbo guy. Devontae Love-Taylor, Norvell.
Mm-hmm.
Kando, Jimbo guy. Marvin Wilson, Odell. He's an Odell guy.
Sure. Jimbo/Odell.
I'm giving it to Odell, though.
Okay. All right.
Robert Cooper, that's an Odell guy. He was committed for so long, and then Jimbo left, and he stuck around. I don't really think Taggart gets much of it. It's still an Odell guy. Janaris, I guess you can say Jimbo. Ericer, Jimbo. Leonard Warner, Jimbo. Gaynor.
Gaynor's Taggart, I guess. He stuck around.
Yeah, but all right, we'll give it to him, fine. But he would have come here no matter who. He's a legacy guy. He's a local kid. He's going to be a great player. I'm not trying to diminish who you are, Amari. We'll give it to Taggart just because the stud position is Amari or Kalen DeLoach, and DeLoach is definitely a Taggart guy. Asante Samuel. I'm going to say Jimbo. What would you say? I know he stuck on board with Taggart.
He stuck around. Asante could have gone anywhere.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah, I would. The thing about that, though, is the reason Florida State was appealing to him in the first place was because of Jimbo.
Yeah.
And then he stuck around thinking, well, it's still a lot of great players. It's a great program. We're going to be winning a lot of games. And that did not exactly come to fruition. But I'll give him Willie, but it's a combo to me.
I'll give him Taggart. Then you got Renardo Green and Travis J. It's clearly Taggart. You got Lars Woodby or Travis J. It's clearly Taggart. And then you got Jarian Jones. It's Norvell.
Yeah.
So your breakdown here, 7 Jimbo guys, 3 Norvell guys, 8 Taggart guys, 4 that were pretty much off your assistants pretty much were the ones who sealed the deal. So as we sit here and argue about whose team is this, is it Jimbo's roster? Is it Willie's roster? The assistant who helped bring half of those guys that are going to be really good, Marvin and Cooper, it's still Odell. Maybe the bigger point is just that this program somehow, they're going to rebuild. They're going to be better this season. They're going to be on an upward trajectory. It's because this program is just going to sustain, man. And as sad and as downtrodden as it felt the last few years, like we're lost in the desert, this season is going to, I think, show us just how good they can be if they can start recruiting at the level of a lot of these guys, because a lot of these guys are going to be gone, and a lot of these guys weren't brought in by Mike Norvell, and not maybe Willie Taggart or maybe Willie Taggart, but this roster is really good. So it's they're like the people's roster. You really can't give any one coach credit for it, because you say Mike, you might be like Aslan, you gave Mike Norvell only 3, so Norvell's got the least amount of credit. Well, hey man, if Devontae Love-Taylor pans out, if Jarian Jones becomes a really productive player, heck, Fabian Lovett's not even a starter, quote unquote, but he's a guy that can have a big impact. Mako Dotson, these transfers they're bringing in. If these guys solidify some of these holes, it just goes, just be optimistic.
Well, there's 3 other names I could throw at you, too. Warren Thompson, I don't know that we can call him a Willie guy, since Willie kicked him off the team, or he quit the team last year. And he came back because Norvell let him come back. Right. Marvin Wilson is here, and Tamari and Terry are here, and neither one of us thought they would be here this year. So at some point, in some way, they believe in Norvell enough to come back for their last seasons in college and still play. Even with what they might be risking by continuing to play injury-wise, I would throw those guys and make those guys Norvell guys. And not to be cliche, but out of those 22, how many do you think believe in Norvell? I think most all of them do. Yeah. How many of those guys that were quote-unquote Willie guys or quote-unquote Jimbo guys, how many did they believe in Willie? How many of them believed in Jimbo that last year? I do think there's more buy-in. And that was the question you kept asking the coordinators, and I thought it was a good question, a good line of questioning about the attention to detail that Norvell has about everything. And Dillingham was talking about, they practiced. They had a meeting as a coaching staff.
Let me play. You mind if I play it?
Oh, are you going to play your question? Just play your questions.
No, I'm going to play just my questions. I asked basically Kenny Dillingham, just with what's going on right now, the limited amount of practice you have, all the uncertainty everywhere. When you have a guy who's as meticulous as Norvell talked about having a plan B, C, D, and E in case any kind of thing were to arise this season, because he's been planning about all this. When you have a guy like that leading your team, what does it do for the psyche of you being an 18 or 19-year-old kid playing football? And this was his response.
Kids are smart. And I think sometimes adults, coaches, fans, media, they don't understand how smart kids are. Kids understand, players understand when you're organized. Players understand when you have a plan. Players understand when you believe in what you're talking about. And that's something that I think Coach Norvell does an incredible job of, is every time he talks, every time he presents, our guys believe in him because he's put in the work to develop the plan. And that plan, he believes in that plan, I believe in that plan, our coaching staff believes in that plan. So when we actually teach it and explain the plan, our guys understand that we believe in it. And they see it, and then they believe in it. So I think it all starts at, coach's organizational skills, and then the time he puts in to actually sit down and hammer out all the little details. We've talked about rain delays and what our operation is on a rain delay and how they've changed the rules. And now it's with less than a certain amount of time in the first half, it now is going to take over halftime. So you're not going to get a halftime. We've discussed that. I don't know how many teams in the country have discussed the new rain delay rule. And that's something that Coach Norvell, no little detail is going to go past him. And all that stuff is why he's the head coach he is.
I think that was summed up pretty well.
Yeah, and I mean, and if somehow they need to go for 2 in a game and he doesn't go for 2, people are going to be like, hey, what happened, Aslan? I thought he was so detail-oriented and so smart. I'm not saying this guy's infallible or perfect, but man, like that answer to me is what really got me excited about this entire season now. And I know we have a pretty low bar set in terms of what we're accustomed to, what we've seen the last 2 years just in terms of organization and fidelity to a plan and executing it. And I know Kenny Dillingham pretty much owes his career to Mike Norvell, so he's going to be his biggest cheerleader. But man, that was authentic. That was sincere. That's a guy that's getting on a table and screaming out for a guy. And I just think this is the right guy at the right place at the right time. And that's why I'm very optimistic about this season, and I'm stoked for the season now, man. I'm there.
And that's also a reason why players that again weren't quote unquote Norvell players, they're not the kids that were brought in with this class or the transfers, might still really believe in them because number one, I think Dillingham's right. They are smart. They understand what if a guy you can be 19 and still understand if somebody 38 is full of crap. Or 42, you could be like, man, I don't think he knows what he's doing. I had a coach in high school when I played baseball that I knew more about baseball than he did. I knew it, but it didn't help me play. I knew it. And none of us, I can tell you this, that I didn't ever really try as hard as I could on that team because I didn't respect the coach I had, and I don't think any of us did. Now, I want to say that we still made the playoffs my junior year, one of the better seasons in Meadow Creek High history.
Let's go.
But it was in spite of him, not because of him, truly. Because we all really liked each other, but none of us respected him. And he just wasn't. He's just anyway. So that can affect a team. And when you really believe when you go into a game thinking your coaching staff is going to work the other coaching staff. That'll get you juiced, man. That'll get you excited. And when you see it pay off early on, when you see it pay off in a game or a quarter or a drive where your coach has been telling you, man, this is going to work. I promise you, if we do this on 2nd and 8 from midfield, I promise you this is the look we're going to get. And I promise you if you make this move or that move or if you sell the fake, you are going to be wide open and then it works, man, they'll do anything for you. That's how it works. And obviously, that wasn't happening a whole lot the last few years here at Florida State. But what I wonder about is what if things don't go well early? That's the one thing you have to wonder about is the buy-in if it doesn't go well. Is it going to be more of here we go again? Or are they going to realize there are going to be some growing pains? And I'm not even talking about losing the game to Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Or just giving up a touchdown on your first drive. Is that going to be the start of an avalanche or is that going to be a blip? That's the stuff you don't know, and that's the stuff that does take more than just maybe, one preseason to get all those players to buy in. But I think if things go well early, this whole group will buy in all the way. Even the guys that are leaving in 4 months will buy in completely to Norvell's vision. If it doesn't go well early, you might lose a few. But that's how teams work. That's college athletics.
I mean, just lastly on that point, and pretty much the last thing I'll have to say on the show day is just, let's also realize who they're playing, man. And again, not to get too arrogant and too overconfident about, but it's Georgia Tech. It's a team that was 2-10 last year and that struggled mightily, and they're trying to fix some things up, and they've got some uncertainty at a lot of spots, and their quarterback's up for grabs right now, or they're at least being kind of coy about it. But like this team last year, for all their struggles, for all the dysfunction we talk about, when they line up against teams that they were better than, like clearly better than NC State, Syracuse, Boston College, maybe not Boston College as much, but like they beat North Carolina State and Syracuse quite handily. And Georgia Tech is kind of floating around at the bottom of the pool in the ACC with those two teams. Now with, they got, they didn't have a whole spring, neither did Florida State, and they're all kind of on the same level field in terms of what they've been dealing with this offseason. But, this staff with this roster is going to be good enough, better enough than Georgia Tech to win that game, even if they don't play an absolute perfect game. And that's going to give them the confidence they need going into an off week, recharge, regroup, and then play Miami, and then we'll see what happens from there. Then it's going to be a real fist fight this season, and I like our chances.
All right, buddy. If you could just be, what are we looking for? We're looking for 2-1 after 3 games, right?
Yeah, Yeah.
So if you lose to Georgia Tech, just go beat Miami, and everything's forgiven, right?
It really is, though. It is. I mean, it is.
Man, we are. What are we now? We're 5 days away, so we're Dontavius Jackson away.
Reggie Northrup.
Yeah, Reggie Northrup, Chris Davis, C.C. Davis.
Yeah. Preston Parker.
That's about the only good fives I can think of. Right? Any other jump out to mind?
I'm trying to think like defense. Like fives usually get defensive back number, but I don't.
Yeah, maybe a quarterback. Maybe there was a quarterback here recently that was pretty good with that number. We didn't do number 6, which obviously would have been Matthew Thomas, not Carlos Williams, because Carlos Williams was 9, as we all remember. Either Matthew Thomas or Nick Wasom. We were Nick Wasom days away yesterday. Now we're Jameis / Greg Reed. I feel like there was a Chip Ferguson, old quarterback that helped start the dynasty.
Okay.
In there too. He was the winning quarterback at the Punt Rooski, was Chip Ferguson.
That's right.
And then there's some other ones in there too.
All right, good stuff. 7 p.m.
Thanks, buddy.
7 p.m. tonight, live. You want to do it live? We'll do it live.
We're gonna do it live as long as I beat all the traffic lined up for my homecoming parade.
Okay.
And people are cool enough on Mayhan to let me get home. Then we'll plan on 7 o'clock for a live wake up war chant.
All right, and then 11ish in the morning, like 11:30 or so, they'll be speaking to us. Selected, is it offensive players on Tuesdays, defensive players on Wednesdays?
It could be.
Look at that. Why would we know?
Why would we know that? Hey, you know what? You go to War Chant and you'll find out.
Yeah.
Go to War Chant this morning about 11:15 or so, and you'll find out who we're talking to.
Offensive players
There you
Tuesdays, defensive players on Wednesdays. That's
Perfect.
what's going to be the plan moving forward. Nothing on Thursdays. We did speak to Willie on Thursdays, but we won't have anything on Thursdays. Not complaining, just saying what's out there. But believe me, we're gonna put it all together. It's gonna be a great season. War Chant Report makes its triumphant return at some point this week as well. So do stay connected to the Ultimate Seminole Sports Source. For Corey, I'm Aslan. Thanks so much for listening to Wake Up War Chant. Proudly presented by Zaxby's Indescribably Good.
Warchant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. Warchant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WARCHANT30. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.